Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee to order for Monday, November 4th, 2024. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Well, good evening once again, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to Dartmouth High School in our November meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee, our first meeting anyway, or I think our only meeting this month. No, we do.
Yeah, 3 weeks from tonight.
3 weeks from tonight, thank you. I wasn't sure if we had decided to go that route. Just a reminder that this meeting is being video taped for future broadcast on our youtube.com/DHSTV media channel. It's also being live streamed there, as well as Dartmouth Community Television on Channel 9 on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m., Friday at 6 a.m., Saturday at 8 a.m., and Sunday at 2 p.m. In addition to that, Dartmouth Community Television broadcasts us on Channel 18 on Monday and Saturday at 12 p.m. and Thursday at 3 p.m. At this time, if you have any cell phones or electronic devices, we ask you to please silence them. Roll call, please, Ms. Gentner.
Chris Oliver.
Here.
Bess Coughlin.
Here.
Mary Beckwith.
Here.
John Nunes.
Yep.
Kathleen Amaral.
Here.
Thank you very much to my committee members. At this time, we have allotted 10 minutes for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on any of tonight's agenda items, we ask you to please approach the microphone, keep your comments brief to 3 minutes or under, and keep it relative to any of the topics on tonight's agenda. And it looks like we have no takers this evening. Very good. We're moving on from public comment at this time. If it's okay with the committee, I am going to turn it over before our approval of minutes to Dr. Saber McGuire for some recognition.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Oliver. So, oftentimes we talk about our educational support professionals and talk about the work that they do in our schools and how much they truly are the backbone of our community and how needed they are and how much we depend on them every day. And so we invited a couple of our ESPs here, and I'm going to ask Dr. Thomas to come up and to speak to a situation, an event that happened just last week, this past Friday at the Quinn School. And I think that in this way, no more does this illustrate how important our ESPs are in our school community than what Dr. Thomas is going to share with you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Saber McGuire and members of the school committee for allowing me this opportunity to speak of two of my educational support professionals. If I could please have Sarah Martin and Lexi Whitney come up with me.
And I'm just going to interrupt very quickly. For the record, I'd just like to say that this does fall under other items that may not have been anticipated at the time of the agenda for anyone that may be watching at home.
So as we all know, teachers and staff wear many hats, and student safety is our #1 priority. Last Friday was no different when in the cafeteria, one of our students began to choke. And Sarah and Lexi acted immediately and calmly and were able to perform the Heimlich in order to remove what was lodged in the student's throat. They are being commended this evening not only for their quick thinking, but also for doing this in such a way in which no other student in the cafeteria, and there were approximately 100 students in the cafeteria at that time, were the wiser. They had no idea that this was happening. When I asked Sarah and Lexi if they could come this evening, Both of them shared that this is just part of their job. This is just what they do, and didn't feel like they needed to be publicly recognized, and we disagreed, which is why they're here this evening. They both shared that other paraprofessionals in our school and staff in our school would do the exact same thing any given day, and although they are correct, we felt it was really important for them to be recognized this evening, so I thank you for this. As one of the leaders of the Quinn School, I am so proud of these two standing with me. I have an amazing staff, and I want to just give certificates to both of them that state, for your courageous and quick thinking that saved a life. Your bravery in a moment of crisis was an inspiration to all and has earned you deep gratitude and respect from our school. And after speaking to this particular student's mom over the weekend, she was so happy that we were recognizing both of these individuals this evening and wanted to make sure that I also told them how happy she was that they were here being honored this evening. So thank you very much. I also have some. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Thomas, and thank you both on behalf of the Dartmouth School Committee. As chair of the Dartmouth School Committee, I personally want to thank you for your quick actions. It's you know, it's truly it's something you wake up in the morning, it's one of those things you don't think you'll ever be doing that.
No, but,
right?
you know, you just go into action and you just do what you have to do to keep the kids safe, and you would hope that someone would do it for your child, so.
That's right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if we could just have you come up here and
Yeah.
We want to make sure we get your picture. Dr. Thomas, do you want to get in the picture?
No, it's okay.
Well, no, we want you to, Dr. Thomas. So again, and thank you. I see your families are here. Sarah and Lexi, your families are there in the back. Again, we know how proud you are. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Again, just a small way for us to recognize what we consider to really be heroic work that you did. So thank you so much.
it's always nice to start the night on a positive note, for sure. Unfortunately, and it's unfortunate that it happened, but it's very fortunate that we have staff members that are trained and willing to jump right into action, for sure. Any of my other colleagues like to share anything, or?
You said it all. That's
You
fine.
did.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Next up, Chair will entertain a approval of the regular session minutes of October 21st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Noon, second by Mrs. Amaral. On the motion, any further discussion? Chair hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we typically have our student representative report. I'm assuming that there's a lot happening this week.
Very busy tonight. We have teams everywhere playing this evening.
It seems that way. So maybe he or she will pop in.
Yep, we'll check
Later
on
on.
that.
Moving on before that, presentation, overview of MCAS results. I'll turn it over to our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Saba McGuire.
Thanks so much. I'm going to invite Dr. Thibault and Mrs. Paveo up. We're going to share, again, this is a high-level overview of the district's MCAS results from this past school year. And it certainly is a timely topic, isn't it, where we know that there was a ballot question that addresses this. very question about the MCAS being used as a graduation requirement. So for the focus of this discussion, though, what we're talking about is how our students fared, because regardless of what happens on the question tomorrow, the MCAS is actually not going away, and we're going to continue to administer the MCAS. And as we've said before, the MCAS is just one measure, and it's an important measure of how our students are doing academically, and just for us to continue to monitor their progress toward meeting the standards. So Dr. Tebow and Mrs. Paveo, I'm going to turn it right over to you. Oh, I'm going to talk first about our mission statement. So I do think it is important for us to continue to connect whatever work we're doing in the district to our purpose. And we've talked a lot in the past couple of months about why a mission statement is so important and what it represents for us as a district. And so we have committed to working with our students, our staff, our families, right there, cultivating safe, supportive. We heard about safe and supportive just a few minutes ago. That's a really, I think, an excellent example of how well supported our staff is to be able to perform something that really, when we talk about heroic, it is, because acting in that moment had to have been somewhat, had to have been challenging for those two folks as individuals. We also talk about inclusive learning environments and how we want our students to be compassionate, informed, and contributing members of our local and global community. And the MCAS is one way for us to measure student progress toward that goal. Our core values, again, I love that what we've talked about with core values is they're static, but how do they show up in our work every day? And we talk about MCAS, again, I just pull out personal excellence and responsibility because, again, MCAS, one measure, one way for our students to demonstrate personal excellence and the responsibility that they have as students in engaging in what is a high-stakes assessment. And so vision, we're going to keep talking about this and how it ties to our work. We definitely are committed to the unity piece of One Dartmouth, and that's coming through louder and louder, which I love. I see it in different aspects of the work that we're doing across the community at large, and certainly the school community. And we're getting to this place where we're talking about unparalleled opportunities for our students and making that connection between current and future generations and the importance of that and building toward a healthy community for the future. And so we're going to talk to you tonight about what is MCAS and why does it matter. And I think, again, I want to make the connection not to the vote that's happening tomorrow, because this presentation was happening this evening anyway. But this is a way for us to put MCAS into its proper context.
Thanks, Dr.
Thank you.
So, as I'm sure we all know by now, MCAS is a series of standardized tests that began in the late 90s to meet the requirements of the Ed Reform Law. It's given to students in grades 3 through 8 and grade 10. It seeks to assess student and district achievement and growth in the areas of English language arts, math, and in grades 5, 8, and 10, science.
So the MCAS exam, why does it matter? It provides the school community with some feedback in terms of how students are doing on grade level expectations in the areas of English language arts, mathematics, and science and tech engineering. It's also part of our accountability system at present. So based on how our students perform on MCAS, the state ends up sorting the schools and determining what level of assistance schools need in order to make progress. So that's the accountability piece. At the high school level, at least as of tonight, MCAS is also used to determine whether or not a high school student meets the competency determination and as a result will receive a high school diploma. And so that's true in English language arts, mathematics, and science at the high school level. In addition to that, based on student performance, students may also qualify for scholarships, the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship and or the Koplik Certificate of Mastery. And each of those, the benefits of qualifying for those are, it reduces the cost of college for our students who are going off to one of the state universities. So that's why MCAS matters for us. We do think, and this is when the state presented the state results, they kind of talked about this as well. We really need to look at our MCAS data in the context in which it's been administered over the past 5 years. And you know, we all know, and we probably don't need any more reminders, but in 2020, we faced a global pandemic. You know, for the first time in 100 years, that really rocked our you know, our profession, our communities, and whatnot. So 2019 is the last pre-pandemic MCAS data that we have, and then 2020, 2021, well, 2020 we didn't administer MCAS at all, but then in 2021 we administered a shorter MCAS at the elementary level and middle school level, and a full MCAS only at the high school level, and then in 2022, I'm sorry, in 2023, it was a return to full MCAS across the board. The state last year was kind of quick to say, oh, the slide on our MCAS results has been halted and recovery's fully underway. I think they were optimistic and they were trying to project that optimism. I think this year's results show that maybe it was a little premature because the MCAS results across the board in the state of Massachusetts were not as positive as they had been the previous year. And in addition to that, though, it's important that we take away from this the idea that the lingering effects of COVID are going to show up in our data for several years to come. Our youngest learners during the pandemic were in pre-K and K when that pandemic hit. They're just entering the testing window now in grades 3, 4, and 5. And so the impact is really just being seen. And so I think it's a reminder that there is a great deal of work to be done in order to mitigate the impact of COVID still on our learners. So how did the, how did Massachusetts do on MCAS?
So I'm going to just give a sort of high-level look at trends across the state. As a reminder, all students, oh,
Lost the screen.
okay.
I got
I'm going
this.
to try not to touch anything.
No.
I talk with my hands, and that's not always a great thing. All students receive an achievement score.
You're good.
Just don't breathe.
Dr. Saber McGuire doesn't have the clicker
All
this
right.
time, so we can't blame her.
So just as a reminder, all students who are in a testing grade receive an achievement level. It ranges from 440 to 560, and within that score, it breaks down into 4 categories. We have students who are exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, partially meeting expectations, and not meeting expectations. And we tend to look at meeting and exceeding together. We tend to look at partially meeting and not meeting as a group together. And so you'll see at the state level, this is sort of, again, we're talking about a very high level look. We're talking about across grade spans. This is an aggregate score. We certainly are doing a much deeper dive at individual grade levels within subgroups. But we wanted to talk at the high level about how the state was doing and talk a little bit about trends that we're seeing that are common between the state and with our students here in Dartmouth. So as Dr. Tebow alluded to, in ELA we saw declines across all grade levels. And the sharpest decline was seen in grades 5 and 7, so those are our students who are currently in grades 6 and 8. The thing to remember about students who are in grade 6 are those are the students who were in first grade and never finished their first grade year, had an interrupted second grade year. So we're talking about foundational reading skills. Our students who are in 8th grade were in 3rd grade when they went home. That's the shift from learning how to read to reading to learn. So as we're seeing our kids start to do deeper reading, we know that there is a lot of work to do. It's not a simple matter of just filling in holes. It's a matter of going back, filling in holes, and keeping them moving so that they can continue to attain grade level work. The results in math were a little bit different. They were more relatively flat in a little bit of what we saw last year. There was a little bit of a positive increase across the state in grade 3 with math, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that meant for us here in Dartmouth. Science results were mixed across the state. We did see improvement in grades 5 and 10, while again we saw a decrease in our grade 8 science scores across the state. And so we went from looking at our state level data to looking at our students here in Dartmouth. And before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about why it's important that we look at the state first. I'll go back to that for just one second. We're certainly more laser focused on our own students here, but it's important to get a barometer. The state results kind of act as a barometer for us so that we know that if our results are sort of trending in the same way across the state, or is it an anomaly here in our district. So one of the things that we tend to use our data for is to look not just at how our students are achieving, but how are our students achieving using the tools we're using for. That could be a different, that's a variable that's different town to town, right? So if you have towns or other places in the state that are outperforming you and you are not, or vice versa, you have to look at what variables are different within your town. And so it's important for us to analyze both the state data and the local data as we continue to do that. And so we're going to look at our Dartmouth data. I'm going to talk a little bit about our 3 through 8 students, and then I'll let Dr. Tebow talk about the high school specifically. Again, you'll see that this looks very similar to the state demographic. It's hard because I want to flip back and forth between slides. I want to talk a little bit about what the overall says, and I'll come back to the numbers if you want to look at them. But one of the things that we are proud of, even though we know there is work to be done, is that we continue to outperform the state in ELA, in math, and in science in grades 3 through 8. And one of the things I said I wanted to talk about was of particular pride for us is our grade 3 math scores. And when I alluded to talking about the impact that curricular materials can have, so our students who are in grade 3 are our first students who have had the Bridges for Mathematics program all the way through since they started it in kindergarten. And so what we start to see is students with flexibility of thinking, students who have multiple strategies to attack a program. And that's, you can see in the day-to-day, as we said, this is one snapshot, but it's always very reinforcing when we say that work that they're doing on the day-to-day is transferring over to the standardized testing that they're doing as well.
So just to speak to the high school a little bit, one of the previous slides, when we talked about the trends across the state, it said that ELA declined across all grade levels. For us at the high school level here in Dartmouth, grade 10, we didn't actually decline. We stayed at 64% meeting or exceeding, which was what we were at last school year as well. So while the state declined, we stayed flat, which you never want to be flat. You want to make positive growth. But again, in context of how the state performed on the grade 10 MCAS, I think we can be reasonably proud of our efforts here in Dartmouth. In terms of math, the percentage of our grade 10 students who are meeting or exceeding continues to be above that of the state. And the one I really wanted to highlight is our science and tech engineering results in the high school. Last year, that was the one area where we were just a little bit below the state in terms of our performance. At the high school level, there was an increase of 11% of students meeting or exceeding, and that is definitely attributable to the hard work of our biology team here at the high school, really digging in and doing some hard work with our students and making sure that they had what they need. And so we're at 55% meeting or exceeding compared to the state's at 49%. Also, you can see the note here where the 8th grade is just above the state in terms of meeting or exceeding. And again, there's work being done at the middle school level, specifically looking at high quality instructional materials that are inquiry based, that are better aligned to the types of simulations and questions that students are going to start to see on MCAS related to science in particular. So, our teachers and our building leaders are all working extremely hard to make sure our students are well prepared to be successful, continue to be successful. Another group of students that, so those trends were for all students across Dartmouth Public Schools. And this slide here takes a little bit of a more pointed look, a deeper look at a specific subgroup of students, which is high needs students. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in Massachusetts defines high needs students as students who are economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, students who have ever received any English as a second language instruction. Those are the major groups that, student groups that make up this high needs groups. And in terms of trends for our high needs, the good news is our high needs students are outperforming the high needs students across the state pretty consistently. And you can see that in front of you in the presentation. But while it's an area of strength that we should definitely recognize and take some pride in, at the same time, we need to really dig in on the fact that there's a significant percentage of our students, particularly in high needs, who are not meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. So yes, it's a source of pride and a source of strength, and it's also an area and an opportunity for us to grow and to continue to improve our practice. Yep. Actually, can I just go back? I'm sorry, go back one more thing. The other thing that I'd like to highlight is, you know, just thinking in terms of our strategic plan, because I know that that is fresh and on everyone's mind, right? This is the type of work that you see that falls under that focus area 1 of teaching and learning, but also in focus area 2 of the safe and supportive schools, the supporting piece. What do we need to do to make sure that we're supporting all learners, and all truly means all? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So you've heard us talk in past years about our DART schools, and so this is another way to continue to look at the data. So when we talk about state data, we're talking about all districts within the Commonwealth. And so what the Department of Ed does is also pulled a group of schools which have similar demographics, and these are the schools that are considered our DART schools. So they have a similar enrollment, they have a similar low income percentage, and we look at, compared to students coming from districts similar to ours, how are our Dartmouth schools and students performing? And you can see that we are especially proud of this data. They certainly, again this year, are above the mean and the median in all areas, and really outperforming the majority of the schools that are similar to ours. One area that I actually didn't speak of before, and that I want to call to your attention as well, is that our student growth percentile. Student growth percentile is different than our achievement data in that it looks at comparing students to those who scored similarly to them the year before. So rather than just saying in the aggregate, this is how our students fall, the department groups students of a similar score band and ranks them against each other the following year, and then they create a percentile of growth. So it allows students who may not be a high achieving student to also be able to show good growth. And so the goal obviously is to have high growth and high achievement, but there are categories of growth. Is this where we're getting into that? I'm ahead of myself, right?
Yeah, no, you're good.
So obviously 50 being the middle of the road, 40 to 60 is considered typical growth. And so anything above 60 is considered high growth. Anything below 40 is considered low growth. And so, you know, we are pleased to see the majority of our grade bands be on the upper end of high growth. We know that there are still areas that we need to work on for student growth, in particular at the high school, and I know Dr. Tebow will talk a little bit more about that. But overall, when we talk about Dartmouth compared to similar districts to ours, we are more than holding our own and certainly proud of our students and staff.
Thank you, Katie. So yeah, one of the areas that we continue to be concerned about is SGP in math and ELA. The way I think of SGP is it's just about all of our students growing, right? Our achievement levels are good, but are all of our students growing? Our high achievers as well as our struggling learners, we really want them all to be growing, and that's what SGP is a measure of. So, you know, grade 10 ELA and math are areas that we need to dig in on, and one of the things, you know, there's a couple of things we already are addressing this with, and that is by making sure that our students have access to high quality instructional materials. We're piloting you know, Carnegie in grade 10 math. It's important, if all students are going to grow, that they all have grade level rigorous learning tasks in front of them. And we don't want to ever be in a position where we're saying these students can and these students can't, right? We want to provide a challenge for all of our students. And so that's one of many reasons why high quality instructional materials are important, because they've been vetted, they're grade level, they're rigorous, and we know that they're aligned to standards. So in math, we're piloting Carnegie. What we haven't talked about as much perhaps is that in ELA, we're piloting pre-AP strategies and embedding those into our 9th grade ELA courses. So that's upping the rigor there so that our students will have access to more rigorous, challenging tasks on a daily basis. And hopefully, you know, we will eventually see the benefits of that in terms of increased SGP.
So what are we doing with this data, right? We have all of this data, and what is it that we actually do with it? So it provides one data point that's used to inform and adjust our curriculum and instructional practices. At the elementary level, data teams analyze individual student data as part of the beginning of the year student data review. This information is reviewed when making decisions about intervention services, and student supports and differentiation. And then additionally, the curriculum teams will look at item analysis data to identify areas of strength and areas for growth at each grade level. And that doesn't just happen at our tested levels. I think it's important to remember at the elementary level, our kindergarten, first, and second grade teachers are looking at this MCAS data just as closely as our tested grades. They provide the foundational skills. So our success in grades 3, 4, and 5 is, yes, we have wonderful teachers in 3, 4, and 5, but it starts in kindergarten, right? And so the work that the kids are doing in 3, 4, and 5 really does begin. And if, for lack of success, if we have areas that we need to grow in, we need to go all the way back and find out where that problem starts. And so we're doing a deep dive of item analysis, looking at individual questions. The state is not releasing questions this year, much to my chagrin, but looking at individual questions and looking at individual standards and making sure that we are adequately preparing our students to be able to do work, and so that we can achieve, maximize our student achievement.
Similarly, at the secondary level, teams get together and analyze the data, conduct item analysis, item analyses, I guess would be the plural of that. In fact, just last week, I was over at the middle school, and Ann Brown, our math coach, over at the middle school, was leading the curriculum planning time, and they were looking at the math data. It was the 8th grade team. They were looking at the 8th grade math data from this year, but also the 7th grade math data, as well as the 10th grade math data. So really trying to take that vertical, look at our data trend in math. And Gary Lauer, our lead teacher here, does similar work with the math department, but also one of the things that we're trying to do is improve vertical articulation, as we've talked about. And so Gary and Ann, myself, we meet monthly, and then we visit one another's common planning times as well monthly. So Gary was at that meeting as well, and it really led to some rich discussion around trends and curriculum and instructional practices at the 8th grade level, as well as at the 9th grade level. So that was helpful, and that's the type of work that is ongoing.
And so I think to always end on a high note, we are exceptionally proud of all of our students and schools during this MCAS season, but we'd like to call out in particular the Quinn School, who has been named a DESE School of Recognition. Each year, the department identifies schools that have demonstrated progress toward their accountability targets and award them with this distinction. Quinn School was one of only 57 schools across the Commonwealth to be recognized this MCAS season, and we want to wish our sincerest congratulations to the students and staff of the Quinn School. So, at this point, we want to say thank you, and we'll take any questions.
Thank you very much for that very detailed presentation. Questions from any of the members?
Great work. Glad we're doing better than state averages. But I guess my question is, with constraints on the budget, what are we not able to do because we don't have the money? Or, do we have enough teachers? Do we have the right instructional material? Do we need,
We always need more.
I just, so I think that those are, obviously, that's a really important question and so closely tied to our district strategic plan and how effective we will be in implementing the district strategic plan, which is tightly or very closely tied to our budget. We mentioned, and I know Mr. Kiley's going to talk about the budget subcommittee meeting in just a couple of minutes that happened just a couple weeks ago. But one of the things that we're finding ourselves having conversations about as we get excited about the work is saying, are we going to have the funding to be able to do this? And recognizing that there are very specific steps that we need to take that do involve personnel decisions that we will absolutely be coming to the committee with during budget presentations and talking about what we need to be able to support our plan. And one of the simple, I guess, when you think about curriculum, teaching and learning, the curriculum piece is curriculum costs money, and not only do the physical materials cost money, but the professional learning that comes along with supporting teachers and the use of those resources is also has budgetary implications. And so, yes, those are things that we worry about. So we have to balance our excitement with the work that we're doing that is happening in this district with also recognizing that we do face budget constraints that might, and that might not, but might slow us down from some of the work we need to know is going to happen. And I think the SGP, when you look at it, particularly at the high school and ELA and math, and think about the importance of SGP, again, acronym, student growth percentile, but percentage. And what we want to see there is we want to see that increase, because when that SGP, student growth percentile, increases, you're also going to see that student achievement, that's going to be in tandem. Student achievement is going to increase, and I'm going to tie that back to curriculum, teaching and learning, and making sure that our faculty and our students have the highest quality resources and professional learning to support them in this kind of work, because that's going to be a difference maker. And yes, we need a budget that supports that.
Given the the various pilot programs you're running this year, curriculum, and I know some of them aren't directly related, but what data are you going to be most interested in looking at this time next year, given those pilots?
So I think when you're implementing, the thing that you have to remember is that you have to be ready for an implementation dip. Right? And so we have to be realistic about the fact that this is not a light switch change that we're going to be making, that you're just going to see all of a sudden it happen. Part of the reason for that is that you implement across grade levels. So when we talk about vertical alignment, right, we talk about the curriculum building on itself year after year. You are going to be talking about grade levels of students for whom this is new and they don't have the previous years. So I think we will be cautious when we look at the data, and that's where looking at individual standards and looking at individual item analyses of what are the things that we knew we were not doing well, are we improving in those areas? But I think we need to be cautious and then also look longer range. So you're asking what I'm looking for next year. That's where I started to allude to the third grade data in math this year. We also look long range when we have an implementation. Not MCAS, I'll talk my other area, which is DIBELS, our early literacy, right? So those kinds of data take a minute. And so I guess my short answer is we're going to be cautious but deep in our looking at the information next year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I had written this down. Usually, so you made a comment about the fact that the state wasn't releasing the answers to the questions?
The questions themselves.
The questions themselves.
Correct.
Type of deal. So, I mean, how are we supposed to know an issue that, you know, if all of a sudden, you know, 20 students got question A wrong, why? You know, was it the way it was worded, the way it was taught? You know, that type of deal. Were they looking for an entirely different answer type of deal? How are we supposed to be able to
So that is
deep dive into,
So that is
fix those?
that is the challenge, right? And again, I mentioned the 8th grade meeting. They were doing exactly that. The state didn't release the actual item, but what they released was the standard and a description of what the question would have been like. So it's not the same as just releasing the question itself, right? But in years prior, they have. So we do have
Partially. They haven't,
Right.
they've never released the whole test,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So there are tryout questions and then there are
Yeah.
unilateral questions. And so they released some, not all. But to your point and to what Dr. Tebow was saying, like if we saw across the state, across the district that 80% of students got a question wrong, that's not really where we're putting our emphasis, right? Our emphasis is on a question that 80% of the state got right, and we're only 50%, right? And so that's what I mean when I say like we have to look at some of the state data and those trends that multiple kids outside of our district are doing compared to our district. But it certainly does make it more difficult to do that deep analysis without the actual question in front of us. We have some information, we know which standards, but not the actual question.
Thank you. No, I'm good.
I just had a question for viewers. If probably Ross, with your focus on the upper grades, sort of relating to the question on the ballot tomorrow, and folks like maybe voting one way or the other because they want to get rid of the MCAS, but we are keeping the MCAS. Just the question is whether or not it counts towards a student's competency. Whether or not that passes, could you talk a little bit about, is it a one and done, the retake process? Perhaps, I don't expect you to have it, but maybe you do. Data around those students who are willing to retest, what that process looks like.
Sure, that I can speak to. So the data that the state cited when they presented the MCAS results this year, because one of the other things to keep in mind, and I didn't mention this, but on that timeline slide, the other thing to keep in mind is that just before MCAS, just before the pandemic, MCAS was also transitioning to next-gen MCAS. So there was a transition to a new form of MCAS, different style questions, then the pandemic hit. So that's an important piece to keep in mind. Along with that, the cutoff scores for meeting and exceeding and all of that at the high school level also changed. It was increased after the pandemic. And so to meet that competency determination, the bar was actually raised a little bit. And so the data that the state cites is that there was I believe, prior to the increase, it was 4% of students who did not meet the competency determination across the state. And there was an increase of 4% with the new cutoff, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's a relatively small percentage of students who don't meet the competency determination across the state. Certainly there are communities where it's much more impactful than here in Dartmouth. Dartmouth, every year there is a small percentage of students who don't meet the competency determination, and they have opportunities to retest in November, again in February, and then in certain circumstances at the in the spring as well, determining based on their unique circumstance.
I guess, Dr. Tebow, students have opportunities to retake the test, and that there's no limit to them having those opportunities.
Right.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah, I
welcome.
think that's important for the community to recognize that there are those options. It's not just because it is like it's worrisome when you know. So anyway, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Amaral. I'll just close by saying a very thoughtful presentation to both of you. I think as a whole, my personal opinion is Dartmouth, we're holding our own, I think. Like you both reiterated several times, as well as we've heard in the past, is we certainly have some work to do around curriculum. I think we know that. I also appreciate you, Katie, coming out and saying that we should be expecting a dip, possibly implementation dip, which is certainly, we should be mindful of that. But I think at the end of the day, with the strategic plan, Dr. Saba McGuire's entry findings, as well as what we've been hearing from teaching and learning, is that with high quality curriculum and then the training to go along with that, I think we'll, ultimately see some increases in our scores for sure. The other piece that I'll mention is when you look at, not so much that I have the DART districts pulled up here, but not so much just the DART districts, but when you look at scores in general and you compare per pupil expenditures, there are some clear trends. Not completely, but there are some clear trends with those school districts that have a high achievement level or a higher student growth level, and their higher per pupil expenditures. So they're, at the end of the day, they're spending more money on their students, and they're seeing the results in their performance. So just something else to keep in mind. But thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, under old business, preliminary FY26 budget. This is a standing agenda item, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kiley, which we had the opportunity to attend the last budget subcommittee meeting, and he has some things to share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. So, as you mentioned, on October 28th, we had a budget subcommittee meeting in which we began to discuss where we are number-wise for FY26. And I guess I think what I stressed at that meeting is that all discussions were extremely preliminary, and that we're still in the process of developing a draft FY26 budget. We, as you know, you folks were good enough to approve our district strategic plan on October 7th. We're in the process of completing school improvement plans. It'll be coming forward to you for your approval. There's a lot that still needs to be shaped in that budget process, and as you were just speaking about, I mean, the impact of the strategic plan is a key element, and we want to make sure we get that right and bring that forward to you in a thoughtful way, which we will be doing. So we're continuing development of the budget, and we'll continue to have preliminary conversations about that until we get to the point where we're ready to present to you a budget proposal. I'll just add also that I had mentioned at the budget subcommittee meeting that I began conversations with the town administration regarding the budget, and so far they've been very open to discussions. So it seems to be a good situation, hopefully, that we can hopefully problem solve together on things as we move forward. So that's really the update of where we are with it at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Kiley. Ms. Coughlin, do you have anything else to add from the meeting?
Not much, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to figure it out with other town agencies and support our strategic plan and support our students and educators.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree, and I think we're still a little bit too early, but obviously based on some of the early projections as well as what we've spoken about in the past is the use of one-time revenue, which would be school choice funds, to help get us through the FY 26 budget and then beyond. But there's also there's definitely some other things in play for sure. So I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations at the budget subcommittee level, and as soon as we have more developments, we'll bring them back to you. Any comments, questions, concerns from committee members?
Work in process.
Constantly.
Yes. It will change.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kiley.
Thank you.
Next up, a continuation of discussion on the MASC resolutions. I believe, do we leave off on 5 or 6?
We left off on 8.
On
But we
8.
were going to revisit 5.
Oh.
Do you want to
Oh,
hold?
yep. Decide on
Do
11,
we want to
14.
hold that to the end, or? Yeah, let's, is everyone all right with that? We'll revisit 5 after we get through.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
So, Resolution 8, equitable funding for non-regional school districts with high transportation costs. This was sponsored by the Plymouth School Committee. Whereas many non-regional school districts face significant financial burdens due to the extensive transportation costs and longer routes required to serve their students. And then it goes on. You have this in front of you. Let's see, let me just get to the end here. Where's the last paragraph where I'm a little confused here?
Look at it from here.
And it would help if I brought my glasses with me too.
Hang on.
Oh, that's,
Which one?
They want an annual
This is the
report
end
on
of 8.
adjustments, busing, and then
That's 8, the end of 8.
annual reporting and adjustment requires school districts to submit annual reports detailing the actual busing costs, the number of buses used, and the miles traveled. Based on these reports, adjust the reimbursements for each district to ensure they are aligned with actual expenses. Comments, questions, thoughts? We would like to hear from Mr. Kiley on this.
Let's hear Mr. Kiley.
Sure, I'd be happy to speak about it. So, I don't think from what the rationale that was given by MASC, we would not qualify for this. It relates to our costs in relation to comparison to state average. So my thought is, first of all, the state has failed to meet the requirements that are currently in the law in regards to transportation reimbursement to regional school districts. So they haven't come up with the money to do that on a regular annual basis. I highly doubt that they're going to come up with the money to do this, and it wouldn't apply to us. So I feel like if they actually did do it, it would be some diversion of resources to somebody other than us anyway. So I don't think it particularly behooves us. We're about state average in transportation spending. So and they were looking at 125% to be the floor, which I don't think we'd ever be there. So that's my opinion. I'd rather see resources spent on actual issues in terms of being able to support our students in another way, like rework the Chapter 70 formula rather than do this. But that would be my thoughts on it.
books and papers. Put the money to books and papers,
That sounds good.
you know?
Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for sharing that, Mr. Kiley, and it just, reframing this whole thing. These are resolutions. These are ultimately ways in which MASC wants to lobby on the behalf of districts for certain things, and I do think it would behoove us to, I know last meeting we were just looking through them and saying yes or no and what that might look like, but for us, I would suggest that we really only focus on supporting those top priorities that would be of benefit to us in the global Chapter 70 formula, fixing, so that, MASC goes to the state legislature with like 40 asks, they're going to say, sit down in the corner. But if MASC comes with 3, 4 real powerful asks, they're more likely to get some buy-in. And so I would ask that as a committee, we really think about what our priorities are, what the priorities of the state are in terms of fixing that formula and only supporting. I know we didn't do this last time, we were looking at the one-to-one, but in a fresh lens, and it just, yeah, that's my thought.
Any other thoughts?
It's good. We either vote no or we just abstain. That would be, I think I think abstaining would be the better of the choices.
I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that as well.
And I agree with what Ms. Samaral said. Yes, we should be supporting things that will behoove all school systems, not just regional schools, not just rural schools, not just schools that have huge transportation costs. This is just Band-Aids on a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And so I think we should also go back to what we voted on no last week and perhaps abstain for them as well. It's not that we're against other schools trying to get help for this, that, or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be the right path.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly fine with that. Like I said, I think this was our first time going through this as a committee. So, okay.
We had voted no on Resolution 6. I can change that to abstain.
Resolution.
I'd support that.
It was the Western Mass schools.
Yep, rural, supportive legislation to improve the fiscal health of rural school districts. I'm fine with an abstention on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's more they need to lobby their specific legislatures.
Agreed.
Legislative members type of deal.
Any other no votes there?
No.
Ms. Beckwith?
That was the only no vote.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm certainly in agreement with my fellow colleagues. So I would, looking at our next resolution, Resolution 9, MSBA grant evaluations, grants evaluation for Chapter 74, sponsored by Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School Committee, and this has to do with MSBA funding for vocational, technical, and agricultural high schools, and rating projects across the state in a tiered system, which really I don't think would benefit us.
Not at all.
Abstain.
Abstain.
I suspect the next one's going to be the same.
Same thing.
Resolution 10, expansion and capacity in Chapter 74 vocational technical programs, Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School.
Abstain.
Yep.
Abstain.
Okay.
Good.
And is that it? And then the
That's it.
rest is expiring?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to go back to number 5.
Number 5.
Thank you. Resolution 5, aligning taxing authority with the required local contribution. Thoughts, comments, questions? What do you want to do?
Well, at the last meeting, Mr. Kiley said that it certainly wouldn't behoove us in the short term, but perhaps 10 years out it might. It seems like it's a broader answer to the question, so I personally would be okay supporting it, but don't feel strongly.
Mr. Nunes?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my only concern here becomes the fact that, in some instances, the state's having problems trying to fund everything type of deal, and if you all of a sudden start, pulling $1 here, $1 there type of deal, the dollars are going to run out type of deal, and they're going to sit back and look, and they're going to take something like this, and they're going to say, well, great idea, but we can't afford this, and gets put on the shelf and that, and, well, you want to bring it back next year and we'll look at it type of deal. I mean, 2.5 is, personal opinion, 2.5's outlived its usefulness, but that's a discussion for another time. But I think my opinion type of deal, I mean, is to just abstain on this one. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. Anyone else?
I mean,
I don't have an opinion on this one.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good with abstaining.
you know, I mean.
Okay.
I don't feel strongly one way or the other
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
yeah.
on this one, so
Yeah.
an abstention.
Good to
Number
go.
5. All right, well,
Yeah.
we thank you in advance
Thank
for
you in
your,
advance.
for your dedication to the cause. Respectfully. All right, next up, under new business, superintendent's evaluation. And I would be happy to turn it over to our evaluation committee members. If you want to explain the process as to what we did, or I'm happy to do that as well, and whatever.
Matter?
Yeah.
Whatever's.
However you want to go about it is fine.
I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Nunes.
All right. So, number one, first and foremost, thank you to everyone for your comments. Very thoughtful process that you went through. Also, thank you again. We had hoped to have this at our last meeting, but Mr. Murphy took over, so that took care of that situation. But so be it, type of deal. My personal thanks to Ms. Amaral, because she does all the computer stuff. So that is fantastic and very helpful to me. We did meet via Zoom this afternoon with Dr. Saber McGuire to go over this. I'm assuming you guys, it has been forwarded to everyone. Again, just for the benefit of our audience at home, there are 5 different performance goals. It's, did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met and exceeded type of deal. So the committee has put everything out, and we've compiled everything. And with regards to the professional practice, the goals, we have met. Student learning goals, met. District improvement goals, met. That was step 1. Step 2 is assess performances on the standards. Checking 1 for each standard. Standard 1 on instructional leadership was proficient. Standard 2, management and operations, was proficient. Standard 3, family and community engagement, was proficient. And Standard 4, professional culture, was also proficient. Let me take a step back. There are 4 categories here. They're unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. Proficient practice is understood to be fully satisfactory. This is a rigorous expected level of performance. So this is what we came up with as a committee. The step 3 overall substantive performance is proficient. The comments, the committee provided an individual evaluation response, and below is a summary of those comments. The school committee provided comments to describe Dr. Saber McGuire's demonstrated exceptional leadership this first year. Notably, her proactive engagement with staff, parents, community, and school committee members, and how she has fostered a collaborative environment, ensuring everyone feels heard and valued. The committee also commented on her deep understanding of the strengths and needs of our district and her belief in data-driven curriculum as a vehicle to student achievements. Additionally, it is clear that she is dedicated to building buy-in from all stakeholders, beginning with staff in the classroom and families and community members. The committee described Dr. Saber McGuire's high-level skill in articulating goals, seeking information, and synthesizing both qualitative and qualitative data, Other words that came out in each committee's member evaluation to describe Dr. Saber McGuire included effective, intentional, strategic, available, supportive. Overall, the committee shared consensus that Dr. Saber McGuire has demonstrated a strong first year. Committee members described her as approachable and visible. She spends time getting to know staff, students, and makes herself available to family and community members. She is identified where Dartmouth public schools do well and where there are opportunities for improvement. The superintendent's performance goals, professional practice. Again, there are 5 categories here. Did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met, and exceeded. And under professional practice, the new superintendent's induction program, she met those goals. District improvement goals. Goal 1, by late spring, the district will have a broad recognition by key stakeholder groups about the district's most critical needs. It will have a widely understood process underway to identify the strategies and goals that will address those needs most effectively and the measure that will be used to assess progress. And that goal was met. District Improvement Goal 2 says maintaining momentum during a transition. Keep the district moving forward during this year's transition in leadership by working with principals and other district leaders to ensure that meaningful progress is made on critical district and school goals, and that was met. Superintendent's performance rating for instructional leadership, curriculum in, excuse me, I apologize, ensures that all instructional staff design effective and rigorous standard base units of instruction consisting of well-structured lessons with measurable outcomes. And that was proficient. They use just letters. Messed me up a little bit. Instructions ensures that all practice in all settings reflect high expectations regarding content and quality of effort and work, engage all students, and are personalized to accommodate diverse learning styles, needs, interest, and levels of readiness. And that was proficient. Assessment, ensure that all principals and administrators facilitate practices that propel personnel to use a variety of formula and informal methods and assessments to measure student learning, growth, and understanding, and make necessary adjustments to their practice when students are not learning. And that was proficient. Evaluation. Ensure effective and timely supervision and evaluation of all staff in alignment with state regulations and contract provisions, and that was proficient. Data-informed decision-making. Use multiple sources of evidence related to student learning, including state, district, and school assessment results and growth data, to inform school and district goals and improve organizational performances, educator effectiveness, and student learning. And that was proficient. Student learning. Demonstrate expected impact on student learning based on multiple measures of student learning growth and achievement, including student progress on common assessments and statewide student growth measure where available.
That should be proficient.
That's proficient. And then the overall rating for instructional leadership is proficient. Comments that were made by the committee members. Dr. Saber McGuire has shown leadership in steering the Dartmouth Public Schools towards rigorous standard-based units of instruction, as evidenced by the implementation of Haggerty and Foundation's K-2 horizontally through our system, through K-5 literacy pilots, through grades 3 and 4, DESE social study pilots, the math pilot, and the world language pilot at DHS, through the science pilot at the Dartmouth Middle School, through Curriculum Summit and the Principal Teams Meeting, team meeting on ELL. And then another comment says, Dr. Saber-Maguire has shown a dedication to using multiple sources of evidence to inform curriculum choices, using MCAS, DIBELS, STAR, and teacher input through the curriculum review cycle. And there's performance for management and operations. Under environment, executes effective plans, procedures, routines, operational systems to address a full range of safety and health, and that was proficient. Human resource management and development, implement a cohesive approach to recruiting, hiring, induction, development, and career growth that promotes high quality and effective practice. That was proficient. Scheduling and management information system, use systems to ensure optimal use of data and time for teaching, learning and collaboration, minimizing disruptions and distractions for school level staff, and that was proficient. Law, ethics, and policies, understand and compiles with state and federal laws and mandates, school committee policies, collective bargaining agreements, and ethical guidelines, and that was proficient. Fiscal systems, develops a budget that supports the district's vision, mission, and goals, allocates and manages expenditures consistent with district and school level goals and available resources, and that was proficient. And the overall rating for management and operations, the educational leader promotes the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff by ensuring safe, efficient, and effective learning environments, using resources to implement appropriate curriculum, staffing, and scheduling, and that was proficient. Again, comments required, not required, but provided by the committee members. Dr. Saber-Maguire has shown earnest effort in developing and executing systems to address a full range of safety, health, emotional, and social needs for our students through the DEIB reviews, DLT meeting, and a good working relationship with our local law enforcement. Reports to the committee about safety concerns and how they are addressed, transparent, proactive about sending letters to families. And another comment, Dr. Saber-Maguire has shown a firm understanding of laws mandated and policies concerning our schools. She definitely welcomed our newcomer students in the fall of 2023, understanding Playa versus Doe decision of 1982. She has looked at MCAS data to see how Dartmouth educates equitably in compliance with Student Opportunity Act. She demonstrates high concern about policy and law, and she engages with the union and meets regularly. Superintendent, the next standards, the performance for family and community engagement. Actively ensures that all families are welcome members of the classroom and school community and can contribute to the effectiveness of the classroom, school district, and community, and that was proficient. Sharing responsibility, continually collaborates with family and community stakeholders to support student learning and develop an at-home school in the community, and again, proficient. Excuse me. Communication. Engage in a regular two-way, culturally proficient communication with families and community stakeholders about student learning and performance, and that was proficient. Family concerns, addresses family and community concerns in an equitable, effective, and efficient manner, and that was proficient. And the overall rating, the education leader promotes the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff through effective partnerships with families, community organizations, and other stakeholders that support the mission of the district and its schools, and that was, again, proficient. Again, comments provided, from letters to parents on how best to view the solar eclipse to the August welcome back school letter to the families. Dr. Saber-Maguire has communicated with families and community stakeholders to support student learning, not just in the schools, but at home and in the community. Parents and family surveys, strategic planning committee, and working well with school committee. And one other comment, Dr. Saber-Maguire has engaged in two-way communication with families and community stakeholders about student learning and performance. During every school committee meeting, she has communicated the business of the school with enthusiasm and clarity. She held a family forum in the spring of 2024 where she presented the business of the schools and took comments and questions from attendees. And the last one, performance rating we have is professional culture. And committed to high standards, fosters a shared commitment to high standards of service, teaching and learning with high expectations and achievement for all. And again, that is proficient. Cultural proficiency ensures that policies and practices enable staff members and students to interact effectively in a culturally diverse environment in which student backgrounds, identifies, strengths, and challenges are respected, and that was proficient. Communication demonstrates strong interpersonal, written, and verbal communication skills. Continuous learning develops and nurtures a culture in which staff members are reflective about their practice and use student data, current research, best practices, and theory to continually adapt practice and achieve improved results. Models these behaviors in his or her own practice, and that is proficient. Shared vision successfully and continually engages all stakeholders in the creation of a shared educational vision in which every student is prepared to succeed in post-secondary education and become a responsible citizen and global contributor, and again, proficient. Managing conflict employs strategies for responding to disagreement and dissent, constructively resolving conflict and building consensus throughout a district or school community, and again, proficient. And the overall rating for professional culture is proficient. Some comments made, again, by the committee members. For Dr. Saber McGuire, everything stands on the foundation of ethics. She fosters a shared commitment to high standards of service, teaching, and learning with expectations for achievement for all, because she has lived it and is guided by it. And the last comment, Dr. Saber McGuire demonstrates strong interpersonal, written, and verbal communication skills. From one-on-one meetings, the weekly updates to the school committee meeting presentations, family forums, convocation addresses, to her report of entry findings, she does not fail to share in concise, clear prose and speech. That's what's there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nunes, Mrs. Amaral. We certainly appreciate that. Before I turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Saber McGuire, any other closing thoughts from our committee members? Anything that was not said or you want to share? You can start down there with Mrs. Amaral.
I'm curious as to what, hopefully we captured it all. We really didn't, we were trying not to be repetitive. Those comments, they were a little repetitive, but I felt that we wanted to share them individually because they weren't necessary, but they were accurate. I think, we spoke to, in meeting earlier today, I shared that I tried doing a word cloud, but my Mentimeter it just wasn't working. But it was interesting to see the words that came out of all of our evaluations in terms of describing Dr. Saber McGuire's, who she has demonstrated herself to be through what she does and how she interacts. And, some of those, it is true, effective, intentional, strategic, available, supportive. But there were several others that were common threads throughout all of our evaluations. And so that's all I have to add. And I would also add that I think John talked about, proficient equates excellence, and that's the average. So some folks did score exemplary in certain areas, but we taking into account the average, and that more so proficient than exemplary. Not that it wasn't. It's just that DESE does sort of guide with only if there's no more growth to be had.
On very rare occasions.
They're really hone in on that. Is be careful if you do it, because it's really got to be there, and that particular person could be a leader someplace, doing, teaching that particular, that area of it type of deal. So just have to be careful. No disrespect, because everything, you could make everything excellent and
I said none taken.
such,
We will talk about next steps for exemplary, because I'm a little competitive.
Yeah, I think we had this afternoon, we had this conversation when we were putting this together.
It's a good starting point. Mrs. Beckwith?
I just want to thank you both, because I think you really did a good job at synthesizing our intent and our shared evaluation. And I just want to acknowledge how awkward it kind of is. Thank you. In my world, evaluations are very private, so I just want to acknowledge that, and thank you for your
I think I used
humility.
the word awkward a couple of times today, so thank you for acknowledging
I'm
that.
glad you saw it before we were here tonight.
Really, a lot has already been said. I don't know that I could add, but it was a great first year.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I look forward to the next.
Yeah, same.
Thank you to Kathleen and John, much appreciated. There was a lot said, certainly a lot said, and I think that's a testament to how last year went, and just it solidifies my feelings on the decision of bringing Dr. Saban McGuire in. As I heard and listened to the comments in those sections, I just jotted down a couple of things that really stuck out in my head, as well as that I personally think it's a very commendable job. And just a couple of things that I heard: committed to improvement, approachable, impeccable communications, and cares about building relationships.
Yeah.
That's kind of the gist of. I synthesized everything and put it into just a couple of words there. So thank you on behalf of the school committee, Dr. Saban McGuire, for a successful first year. We look forward to many more.
Great. If I could just offer a few comments. First of all, thank you to the committee. You have been an incredibly supportive committee, and you've made that part of this work really not easy work, but you've made it easy for me as a brand new superintendent coming in. So I can appreciate so much. And I just want to say that the comments actually have more weight for me than the actual ratings. And so, again, it's humbling and at the same time really validating to the work that we do every day in our school district. So a superintendent doesn't do their work alone, and a committee, a school committee, a supportive school committee who is as invested in the school district as the superintendent and who has the right commitment to the right things makes this this opportunity and made this opportunity and transition for me one that has been incredibly meaningful to me in my life and in my career, and I want you to know that. Additionally, the committee, I mean, I have a phenomenal central office leadership team. Again, the support that we have from one another and getting the work of school done, because in the end, it's all about us, and I've said this, being in service to our schools, our families, our students, our educators, our staff, our town leaders, You mentioned in the report the union. That's been a very important relationship, and I appreciate the commitment that union leadership has had. I'm looking at Mrs. Parisi because she's right in front of me this evening. But again, Mrs. Vieira, everybody part of that leadership has been really important in dealing with some of the difficult things and at the same time celebrating what's really wonderful that's going on here in the district. Town leaders have been wonderful here too. I felt so welcomed by Mrs. Ham, Mr. Tattlebaum. I could name all of the folks that were involved in the work that we've done together. But this is really about moving not only a school district forward, but how are we partnering with this community to really become that vision that we all have for being one Dartmouth in our commitment to the betterment of this community, because it's our young people that are going to be the folks that are stepping into those really important roles that we're all talking about tonight, and that our educators are the people out in the schools who are supporting that learning and that growth. So again, I just have to say that I am, again, humbled by your comments. I thank you so much, and I cannot in any way overstate how important you have been to making this a wonderful year. I'm looking forward. Our district strategic plan is launched. We have a lot of work to do, and that's the great thing about our work, is that there's always a lot of work to do, and that's what keeps us moving forward. As far as like ratings are concerned, I just want you to know I am a little competitive, so I will be working very hard to get that coveted exemplary, and that's also the work and the conversations that I have with the staff that I work with every day about what do we do to take ourselves to the next level, because that's really what it's about. What do we need to do in order to take us to the next level? And so thank you so much. I'm truly so pleased to be here and looking forward to another wonderful year in Dartmouth.
Lucky to have you.
We're pleased to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Nunes.
we do need a motion to approve this evaluation type of deal, and then we need, Mrs. Amaral and I have signed it, and we just need Dr. Saber McGuire's signature on it for her file.
Okay.
Because has to be done in open session, and this is a part of her personnel file and such.
Understood. Chair will entertain a motion to approve Dr. Saber McGuire's evaluation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nunes, second by Ms. Beckwith. On the motion, any other discussion? Chair, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Good job.
I'll get her to sign it after.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Continuing on, Superintendent's update.
I know, I'm right back into it. So I am happy to share all that's happening here in the Dartmouth schools. And every time I put together a report to share with you at a school committee meeting, I always realize how it just gives me a moment to pause to think about all of the great things that are happening here and all the really good hard work that's happening. So I'm going to give you a quick update under teaching and learning. You've already heard from Katie and Ross, who gave you an overview of our MCAS results. I thank them so much. They did a wonderful job, and I think gave us a really high level and detailed view of what's going on in terms of student performance related to our standardized testing. I would mention, and I know you've heard this, pilot, but we started our second ELA pilot, and simultaneously Mrs. Paveo was able to take a team of people to Barrington to talk with folks who were using one of the resources that we're piloting. I want to thank those folks in Barrington, and I want to thank Mrs. Paveo for bringing a group of folks out to another school district to see some of both the challenges and successes that they've had, because this is a big decision for us. And so we are in the process of the implementation of the second pilot, looking forward to feedback from our educators. Really, again, their positive approach to this work is making a big difference, and I do believe in the end, using the data that they give us and what they're sharing with us, we will make a great decision to lead the Dartmouth literacy, the learning for literacy of our students in really K to 5. Same for Dartmouth High School leadership. I'm particularly going to just pick out the math department. I did have an opportunity to sit in on a recent math common planning. Again, those are things that I think are really important. Dr. Thibault makes himself available for those types of meetings too, more to be listeners. And listen to our teachers talk about the resources and what they're grappling with, what they're finding success with, because it does help us as a district when it comes time to make those important decisions of the direction that we're going in. I was really pleased to hear them talk about how some of the students are demonstrating better or a more understanding of the material in this new resource, because it's a really different way for our teachers to teach, and it's a really different way for our students to learn. And so again, thanking the educators for being willing to take those kind of risks, both for themselves professionally and also with the students, with their students. So we thank them for that. I am pleased we had mentioned Project 351. We were hoping to hear from them soon. We did. And we have been accepted into the Project 351 initiative. Again, Dr. Thibault works with, again, folks at the middle school, high school, but this is a highly selective process. And so being part of this initiative is a big deal for us here in this community, and we look forward to having our students come and talk to you, as we did last year, about the work that they're doing and what that looks like in terms of the other students and how they're being impacted. So again, thank you to Dr. Thibault for his stewardship throughout this process. Next, quick update on where we are with budget, capital improvement, HR. So human resources, I want to mention to you, and you've heard it, the ELL teacher. We're still in the process of interviewing for an ELL teacher who will be shared between the high school and the middle school. We think we might be making some progress, and hopefully at our next meeting we'll have some good news to share with you. At the same time, you know that we've had a change in leadership at the Cushman School. Right now we have Mrs. Heidi Brooks, and we also have Mrs. Karen McCarthy, who are sharing the duties of supporting the Cushman School as we begin the process of reviewing applicants, and we'll begin interviewing and selecting a new director. We hope that we're going to do that fairly soon, and at the same time, we're aiming for a January start, but at the same time, we know we're in good hands right now with the two people who are very experienced educators who are helping to support the Cushman School right now while we go through this process. You know, I'm going to mention monitors, substitute teachers, ESP. It's all the time that we're looking for folks. Our food service workers. You saw tonight, we honored a few of our ESPs tonight for the work that they do, and again, we talk about them as being our unsung heroes, and in many ways, all of those positions that I just talked about, I just said that we're continuing to look for folks to fill positions, they are some of the unsung heroes that work in schools. Mr. Kiley now, I think, wants to do an update on some of the work that he's doing with capital improvement projects.
Thank you, Dr. Saban-McGuire. Yep, real quick on our capital improvement plan, we're working on our FY 26 through 35 capital improvement plan, which, you know, the 5-year capital improvement plan process that, you know, I've done every year since I've been here, has a fair amount of margin of error, particularly when you're talking about 70-year-old buildings. But the 10-year capital improvement plan has that's a pretty broad time frame to be trying to estimate everything that a 70 And at the end of this plan, 80-year-old building is going to need. So we're in the process of doing that. We're working with our administrators in the schools. They're preparing their thoughts for the end of this week, and those will be submitted to me, and then we'll do some more homework and have some talking about that with everybody, and then we'll put a plan together to bring it forward for the group. So.
I'm going to move right into family and community engagement. I think I said this at the beginning, just a reminder, the way that we've structured the superintendent's report is really around the 4 focus areas of the district strategic plan. And so with family, well, I'll actually go a little bit out of order because it's just a quick safe and supportive schools update. Kim Redlund, who is here tonight, she is meeting for the first time with the district crisis team meeting this coming Wednesday, and so we'll be looking forward to updating you as to the outcome of some of the work that's going to be going on with that team in a future school committee meeting. And so under family and community engagement, again, this is a strength here in Dartmouth. There is so much going on with family and community engagement. At the same time, we want to be intentional about how we're engaging with families in the community. Since our last school committee meeting, we've had several opportunities to engage very intentionally with the community. As you know, we hosted a community forum to introduce our district strategic plan. We appreciate those folks who showed up to hear our presentations. Again, Mrs. Beckwith, thanks for being there. And we did have a few in-person people, but we also want to thank our at-home viewers. At last count, and I check every once in a while, we are up to about 280 views. So perhaps, you know, people are maybe not showing up in person, but that doesn't mean they're not taking the time to watch and to listen and to learn about the work that we're doing. I've actually had a few people comment to me that they've seen it and that they're excited about the work ahead. So that's been important. So again, viewership is up, even if in person wasn't quite what we'd hoped. But next time, because again, we're going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to host these kind of opportunities. Dartmouth High School hosted its open house for our 8th graders. Again, really pleased that so many families attended, and they weren't just all students from the middle school. We did have some students who are attending maybe private schools or other opportunities for education, and they are expressing interest in Dartmouth High School. So I also had the opportunity to tape an episode of What's Cooking in Dartmouth. So this allowed me to talk about our district strategic plan and share my baked mac and cheese recipe. So apparently it will be on shortly before the holiday because it's a great side dish for Thanksgiving. So I want to thank Magnolia McComish and the folks at DCTV. I was so impressed with their operation. I don't know if you realize or if you've been in there, but they actually have a kitchen that is designed for this kind of cooking show. Now, I wouldn't hire me to be the person who hosts a weekly cooking show, but we'll see. We'll see. I did get some good feedback about the mac and cheese. So again, impressed with their operation and their professionalism. They are such really a valuable asset to not only the Dartmouth schools, but the Dartmouth community. So also this past Thursday, Dartmouth High School hosted its annual Unified Halloween Ball. I think that's what they call it. It was quite a party. Lots of students and staff here, refreshments, students and staff dancing. You know, again, the commitment between the staff and the students is really palpable here, as this was an after-school event. There were a number of educators here working with the students, and the students were having so much fun. And it was just really nice to see that collaboration between all of our students, regardless of their background. I'm going to give a special shout out for a minute to Daniel and Avery. So Daniel and Avery are Dartmouth High School students who apparently watch all of our meetings. And they do some commentary on them. So thank you to Daniel and Avery, and we appreciate that. We're going to have to look at one of those versions of our meetings to see what they really think about our school committee meetings. Be interesting. I'm going to invite Mr. Galashaw. Oh, he looks surprised. Yes, I'm going to ask you to come up and to talk about where we are with the website.
Dr. Sabe McGuire begins her quest for exemplary. We start with something that she's been driving me for the past months and months, but mostly supporting me. She's been to a lot of our meetings where the tech people have gotten together to build pages and such, and she drops in, whether it be in the conference room or in the office, just to give input and comments about what we're looking at. So as part of the strategic plan, we are providing one of the elements of family community communication and outreach. It's very important. That would be our new website. We have been working for months building a new website. We've weeded through the old website, trying to clean up documents and forms and links and such. It was very important to go through all of them to make sure they're accounted for. So on the new website, we're keeping it mostly simple as we develop more forms and documents as we build them. And when you do that, you must make sure that we have ADA compliance, it's American Disabilities Act, so that documents can be read online, also multilingual and such like that. So it's definitely still a work in progress. I just wanted to thank some of the people in my office, Tom Faraz and Tracy Bourgeois, who worked really hard at doing this, as well as the instructional tech people, administrators. We've gotten together, people at all over the high school that are having certain parts of the update, music department, athletics, and so on, and all their parts, as well as the library, and the secretaries as well, who will control the calendars from each of the schools. We chose tomorrow at 3 o'clock to flip, because we figured nothing else would be going on in the country, so we thought that tomorrow might be a good time to, no, it's purely coincidental, we didn't plan that. But at 3 o'clock, we'll be working with the domain name services system. Basically, it's the same site, dartmouth.school, just a new look. So what happens is they point the dartmouth.school to another website. And the old website, right now we've been working in what's called a sandbox with the new website, and it flips. So the old website will be in the sandbox, and we can make reference to anything. We've also put on the new website, this is a new website, please give comments, questions, links. You know, if there's something missing, you can't find something, let us know, so we can take that input as well. So we look forward to that tomorrow at 3, so be patient. Maybe you can check on anything else that's in the news at that time, but from 3 o'clock, hopefully it flips within a matter of 30 minutes, but there might be a twist between that. So I just wanted to announce that, and we're on our way to exemplary, Dr. Sabe McGuire, so we'll be good.
I'll be counting on that, Mr. Galashaw.
Thank you.
The emails that we have, you know, saved in file folders, those are all going to flip over?
Oh, they're all fine. Yeah, everything else around us. It's just how we present schools with, we brought in the parent square feed, we brought in new, you know, latest updates, principals' messages, calendars, pictures, a lot more dynamic, but there's still the busing listings, the nutrition for the menus, the calendars. These are important things to families and parents and such. So we're always, you know, open for suggestion. People, PTOs, community links. A lot of it's a great place for links for, you know, software and links for documents and forms and such for people, registration and such.
Yeah, well, we will send out a message to the entire
parent square, yeah.
Yeah, to the parents, to our staff, letting them know. I mean, it's not going to disrupt anything that they're doing, but we want them just to let them know that there's a new look website that will be out there.
Yeah.
And so the way they navigate might be a tiny bit different,
Sure.
like whether they're getting to Teach Point or something that's part of their regular practice, but we will be sending out a communication.
Mrs. Zamora?
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
If it will still continue to operate through the app?
Oh, actually, there'll be a new app.
Okay.
There'll be a new app, not
Yep.
tomorrow,
Mhm.
but the new app will be unveiled very shortly.
Mhm.
What it is the actual website can be viewed on a phone
Mhm.
as if it's an app, but there's also an app that will come with that.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you.
Great. Looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah,
Yes.
there'll be I'm sure some bumps, but I will make sure it's very prominent of how to call or how to write if there's a problem. But we also place things exactly where they were in the old website, so the familiarity of going to Aspen or the menus or the calendar are in the same spot. So we figured people by force of habit would go right to that spot.
Great.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Gill.
you.
Thank you.
And I think just a couple other quick things, because there are a couple sports events going on right now, actually. We have boys soccer, I think it's over. So they lost, so that's unfortunate, but again, the girls, we did find out that too, the girls, field hockey. And we have volleyball going on right now, so I've been listening to see if I could hear any cheers, but it's been a little quiet for the last few minutes, but we'll definitely be peeking in to see how they're doing. And I know Mr. Nunes is going to give his update about how our award-winning band is faring. So thank you.
Thank you. For the report of the chair, just very quickly in my, and this is where that thought earlier came from, in my biweekly meeting with the superintendent, we had discussed our next meeting on November 25th. That's the week of Thanksgiving. It is what we felt was a very light agenda, and probably not necessary to take up everyone's time that week of Thanksgiving. If anyone has any objections to that, or are you okay with having the night off?
Yes. Oh, that's good. That didn't take too long.
What would, in all because I have missed putting it on my December calendar, what's our meeting date in December?
Meeting date in
The 16th.
December.
Yep.
Yes. The 16th.
Okay.
And that'll be our only one.
Yeah, that's
in
our only one.
December.
I'll fix that.
So anything that,
Okay.
I'll
So
take your thunder, Mr. Nunes, and say any warrants or anything that may need to be signed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can contact you all and
Yeah.
arrange for signatures.
Perfect. So you can wipe that off your calendars. Monday, November 25th. And that's all I have for this evening. I'll turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Nunes, for the report of the Dartmouth High School Marching Band.
Thank you. Got a couple of things. We do have a football game Friday night. The football team's in the state tournament. They're ranked number 6, I believe, in our division type of deal. So we're hosting Milton High School, 7 o'clock Friday night. So come out and support the students and such. Our high school band, wow, keeps on trucking. On October 27th up in Stoughton, they were the U.S. Band's Massachusetts State Champions. They had a score of 95.0 for Division 4, and winning all the captions, as they've kind of done all year. Then this past Saturday, we went down to MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, where the Giants and the Jets play. And the band came in first place in Division 4, so they are national champions again, with a score of 97.65. They took the caption awards for overall effect, music, best percussion, and best visual. They came in second in color guard by 0.2 of a point, type of deal. I mean, it was, unbelievable. That's how close some of these are, type of deal. But they've had a great year, so Now we just get ready to move on to indoor percussion, indoor winds, and indoor color guard, both the varsity and junior varsity on the color guard. So that's there, and again, you know, Dr. McGuire talked about, you know, the teams in the tournament, so, you know, volleyball's playing now, and hopefully it continues. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
They're up 2
Thank you.
sets to none.
Volleyball?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a really nice system of being able to watch the games when we're not there.
Yeah.
So it's really good camera work.
I wasn't watching
I'm
this the
so-
entire meeting.
But I am impressed.
noticed you were a little
I'm just,
distracted
I'm
this
impressed
evening.
with the quality of the video.
Anyone else?
Nope.
All right. So with that, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Our next school committee meeting is Monday, December 16th.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Safe travels. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Nunes, second by Mrs. Amaral. On the motion, anything else? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Meeting is adjourned.